Hello, everybody. I hope you got your kaleidoscope glasses on right now because we're getting psychedelic on this episode of Beyond the Borderline with your hosts Connor, Cam, Phil, and Ryan.
Epic. Okay, welcome back,
Thank you.
everybody. So today's episode is unique in that this will be the first episode where our topic of conversation is based off of a fan request. So we've been telling you guys, send ideas into our DMs and you speak, we will listen. So one of our dedicated listeners, Sarah Bennett, shout out Sarah. We went to high school with Sarah. She's a lovely person. And she DM'd us basically asking us to talk about psychedelics. So, part of what she requested was essentially, do we think the science around psychedelics and opening up the mind to places that it hasn't been will or can advance the human race in some way? And is it possible? Is it perhaps possible through the power of psychedelics to achieve, a greater understanding of the universe and even possibly perceive other dimensions or travel to other dimensions through the power of psychedelics? Or is it all just chemicals in your brain making you see crazy stuff? So we'll open up the floor to that topic. It's an interesting one. So what are your guys' thoughts?
I think we can all agree that it's definitely beneficial for the human race. Like when you look at it, Canada just allowed testing for microdosing and stuff like that. So whether you believe in doing psychedelics to open up brain connections and stuff like that, or connectors in the brain, and view alternative realities or whatever, we can talk about that after. But I think we can all agree that at least microdosing,
we should explore
mushrooms
it
and stuff like that should be explored because clearly it has health benefits to people suffering from PTSD and mental health issues. But we can touch on that later. I think we should talk about
that's more like in the practical sense, but let's stick to the kind of abstract ideas here.
When listening to Sarah's question here, it makes me immediately think of a pretty famous artist. So who I'm talking about specifically is David Bowie. Now, I learned about this story from a friend of mine who reads up and studies a lot about musical history. So I guess this is more secondhand knowledge than me doing the research myself. So I'm going to paraphrase as best I can. But essentially, David Bowie, whether you like 70s or 80s music, I think we can all agree that David Bowie is quite a talented artist, right?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if all, but I know so a vast majority of the music that he created, he did so while absolutely blitzed on cocaine. While cocaine isn't really known for its psychedelic effects, I think it goes to show just how much an effect drugs can have on your ability to create. It almost acts like that extra catalyst to propel your mind where it needs to be in order to create those incredible sounds and content. So I think when we're talking about the capability that psychedelics have on the mind to advance yourself to a point where you can create such incredible pieces of content, whether that's music or science, I definitely think is possible for some people.
Yeah. Okay. Pause. We're going to have to cut this, but Connor, I think it's you. There's a lot of feedback coming from, I think, your mic, like all the background noise is being picked up.
Yeah, you're good now.
Yeah. But like when you're moving and breathing and hauling on the vape, like all that was audible.
I was going to put it in the chat.
Like
do you want me to just go off this one then?
Yeah. Go off it.
Fuck's sakes.
You can hear the like feedback of like, when someone taps a mic, you hear that like muffled sound.
The pop.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
okay.
Boys.
No worries.
Okay, just pick it up right after me finishing talking about David Bowie.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you're right. I don't think anyone would disagree that like you can use psychedelics and other drugs. I mean, even weed to foster like a creative spirit and well, just by its very nature, right? It puts you into a different state of mind, so your way of thinking is different. And with some, your inhibitions are lowered. With some, you I don't know, you just take different pathways to different conclusions that you wouldn't
Well,
have
let's look.
reached.
I think one of the best examples that you guys are looking for right now is Steve Jobs, right? Like he used to trip on acid, and that's how he came up with like Mac and different ideas around Apple and stuff like that.
Is that
Was
true?
Yeah, but well,
Yeah,
I don't
it is
think
true.
I don't really think Steve Jobs is the genius that a lot of people believe him to be. A lot of the science and technology was actually developed by Steve Wozniak.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
attribute
So
more of Apple's success to him than I do Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs
well,
was a beautiful mind for marketing. That's where
Yeah.
his
yeah,
strengths
Steve
were.
Jobs, but Steve Jobs had all the ideas. The technical stuff was the Woz, but Steve Jobs came up with like the Mac, right? He didn't do the programming stuff, but he came up with the idea, and then the Woz was the one that brought it into reality. But without
Right.
Steve Jobs tripping
Yeah,
on
he's an
acid,
ideas
those
man.
ideas would not have come to fruition. And he even said like everyone should try acid at least once because it will open your mind to so many different things.
Right. Okay. Well, think about it. I'll put it like this. So we're going back to another Dune reference here, but how could we not? How could we
the
not?
spice.
Yeah. So if you're familiar with Dune, or if not, what's called the spice melange is the biggest plot device throughout the Dune novels, and what it is essentially a drug only found on the planet Dune.
Well, it's more than a drug.
No, but well, I'm about to explain it. Well, it is essentially it's a drug. And its primary purpose is to to basically have that effect that we're talking about psychedelics possibly having, which is opening up different avenues in the mind. And eventually the protagonist, Paul, is able to kind of transcend the normal state of mind that human beings are in, and he can peer into the future and peer into different pathways by virtue of what this drug has done on him. And there's other orders, quasi-religious orders that use the drug to connect with their genetic memories of past ancestors and essentially become as close to all-knowing as you could become. So there's something there. Clearly, Frank Herbert, the author of Dune, had heard the theories of psychedelics being used in like ancient religions and stuff, and like our ideas of God being shaped by psychedelic experiences and like hallucinogenic experiences. And so it's an interesting thing to think about, right? It's like, look, we operate in day-to-day life just like normal people, with nothing really affecting our brain other than that which affects our brain on a daily basis. But things like DMT, for example, where people report these insane trips that they go on, and an overwhelming feeling of understanding, like when people take acid or shrooms or DMT or whatever it is, they come back from their trip, their voyage through their mind.
Their voyage.
Well, it's what it is though, right? And they oftentimes talk of deep thoughts that they had, and a sense of calm where they've reached some kind of understanding about the universe or about their purpose. So when you bring up mental health, Connor, like I think that's why microdosing helps, because people, I mean, anxious people or nihilistic people or people who have so many things going wrong in their life and they can't seem to get a grip on it. They almost have a revelatory experience, a revelation of look, this is life and it's going to be okay, in some kind of deep sense. So I don't know what you guys think about that. Is that possible? First of all, is it possible just in terms of the mental health, but also like to go deeper, like with Dune, like could we unlock other areas of our brain?
So I need to stress this point before we get too far down the rabbit hole. A lot of people, there's still this misconception that a lot of people have this belief that, humans only have access to 10% of their brain's capacity or 50% or whatever. And they think that doing psychedelics will unlock your full potential of your brain. This is actually a myth. you have 100% control over your brain. If you took out 1% of your brain, you would then have brain damage, and you would experience something like I don't
Yeah.
like some
The
manner of
conversation is
disability.
around perception, though, right?
No, but I just wanted to make that
Yeah.
clear
Yeah.
before I
Good
get
point,
further into
good
what I'm
point.
talking about.
Mm.
I do agree 100% that psychedelics and drugs like weed and stuff like that are definite, when used in microdosing, are definite treatment
Weed's not a
plans.
psychedelic though.
I know I said psychedelics and drugs like weed to separate the two categories. I think those are definitely great treatments for those that have mental illness, any sort of mental illness issue. I think they're really, they've shown to be effective for those people. But in terms of where you were going with Dune, Cam, I think for some people who are in a state where their mind is incapable of reaching that level of enlightenment on their own, I think psychedelics are, when used appropriately, can certainly help them achieve that level of perception that they would like to achieve.
Yeah. Pause. The mic is just awful, dude. That's gonna, all people are gonna be hearing is like that right now. What was that?
That was me. I hit my mic.
I took mine off again.
Yeah, just speak through your phone speaker and don't touch the mic or do anything, because that's all I'm hearing while Ryan's talking.
Fuck, sorry boys.
All good.
I thought I'd fix it, but
All right,
Okay,
just pick it
unpause.
up.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to cut this too. What did you end with?
I just wanted.
I was just agreeing with you that I think psychedelics can help people
Oh,
achieve that level of
right.
perception.
So
I was
yeah,
just
it's
gonna
like
say, it can be used other ways too. Like if you look back to, like, I just love speaking about the Vikings, but they used to before going to battle, they would like ingest a bunch of mushrooms, and it would like it would make them fearless, right? Because they're like
yeah.
Be
either
berserkers.
yeah, the berserkers
Rage.
are the biggest ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just helped them. You know, people said it gave them an edge in battle. Whether they saw things faster, who knows if that's true or not. That's what they believed, and they were a force to be reckoned with. So there's something to say behind that. But
Yeah.
beyond that, like I think it definitely opens up, like as you said, Ryan, like you have access to 100% of your brain. But I think, you know, sometimes your brain's not in unison, and like parts of your brain aren't fully connected to other parts of your brain. And it's proven that when you do, like when you take psychedelics and stuff like that, there's connectors in your brain
Mhm.
that open up to each other and stuff like that.
Well, because on a
So
regular
it allows-
basis, you're just concerned with like earthly worries, right? Like
No. Yeah.
how
I
many
agree.
times like do you
Yeah.
have to like during a day, like all you're thinking about is the now, you know, and it's like it takes something like, you know, a trip, a drug trip to like to focus your thoughts on grander things. And you said the right word, Ryan, which was enlightenment. And that's what they do, is they seem to provide enlightenment to people, whether it's religious or just,
I do.
and,
Yeah.
and we've made
I,
this distinction before, like it's just spiritual. But meditation is I think they both are trying to come at it from different angles, you know, like one
Mhm.
route is psychedelics and one route is meditation, and they're like
Two
both
sides of the
seeking
same coin.
enlightenment. Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, it's just like while you're right about the like we have, it's not going to open new areas of our brain in like a
Yeah,
physical sense.
you're not going to be fucking telekinetic or any shit like
No,
that.
no, but like your perception of
Yeah, I agree.
and your understanding, you know, like it's just really interesting to contemplate. Like for example, in Sarah's question when she's talking about like traveling to other dimensions, like probably not physically, but in like a metaphysical sense.
Yeah. So
you know,
so I want to circle back here to what Connor says about, you know, activating certain connectors in your brain. I agree. I think to combine both of what you said and Cam said, when we're sober, we're constantly thinking about the most common things. I got to pay bills, what's happening with the economy, what's happening with politics, what's happening with my job. But when you take drugs, specifically psychedelics, it's almost like it puts stoppers on those common thoughts and it frees up capacity in your brain to think about other things that you wouldn't normally think about, which in turn helps you reach that level of enlightenment.
yeah.
yeah, that's the other thing too, is like about
meditation would be just the natural way of trying to achieve that, whereas
Right.
psychedelics are the performance enhancing equivalent of that.
Yeah, it's like I think a lot of people live their life like, it's like one of my favorite sayings. It's like your world, I'm just living in it. Like everyone like lives their life like they're the most important person in the world, but like taking these psychedelics and getting inter perspective and like thinking about how small you are definitely puts a lot of things into place, and you're just like, wow, like there's 9 billion people on the planet. I'm just one person out of 9 billion. When before, I'm sure you're thinking like, oh, I'm just living my life. I want to do whatever I want to do. But then there's like 9 billion other people that are trying to do the same thing. And it's like, it helps put things into perspective as to how tiny we really are in the grand scheme of things.
See, that's why I'm scared to try psychedelics, because I feel like I'm going to start thinking about demons and existential dread and stuff like that. Like,
Oh boy.
I don't want to fucking go down that path.
Yep.
No.
Speaking
I
of,
think, is it, Ryan, is it maybe your mic too close to your mouth or something?
Is that better?
I'm just trying to pinpoint where this noise is coming from. I'll find all these timestamps for you to cut. It's just
Yeah,
keeps
all good.
happening. Keeps happening.
Is it still happening even though I don't have mine in?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's coming from Connor.
Or it's whatever. Anyway, we'll just continue. But okay, what I was trying to what another thing I wanted to bring up is I did some listening today on the topic of psychedelics and how they relate to religious experiences. Because like, you read testimonial or you hear testimony of people that do psychedelics, especially like DMT and acid and stuff. And like I said, they have a super, super deep and meaningful experience that sometimes takes on like a spiritual connotation, right? And so the idea that a lot of people had, and it used to be a discredited theory, but it's gaining traction again as, the topic of psychedelic drugs starts to become more mainstream again, is that like ancient religions and stuff were using, whether knowingly or not, using hallucinogenic drugs in ritual like experiences. Like the ancient Greeks, certain ancient Greeks, specifically in the cult of Dionysus, the wine god, who would drink this wine and ingest these beer as well, and ingest these substances that could have been, it's theorized that they were laced with ergot, which is like a fungus. And that's what they had these revelatory experiences where they were, it was deeply, deeply mystical, where they were like, they traveled to the brink of death and back. Even Plato himself, who then went on to say, like, if people are engaging with philosophy properly, then they're constantly bringing themselves to the brink of death and staying dead. And by that, he meant engaging with our mortality, right? Which is what doing psychedelics does, is we get an understanding of who we are in the universe. And so there's just a very interesting connection to religion. And so the question arises, were psychedelics behind our religious beliefs in the ancient past? And if so, was that genuine? As in they opened a path to like understanding a higher power? Or was it just they made us feel that way? Did they truly give us insight into like the meaning of life and like God or the idea of God? Or did it just give us the feeling of that? But either way, our religions could have been based on it,
I think that that definitely speaks to a lot of things too. Like even like looking at the First Nations and like native tribes, a lot of them would have to, sometimes it was like, depending on what tribe it was, sometimes they would like take peyote trips or
ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca, different things. And then a lot of the time it was like right when you're kind of like going through puberty and it's like becoming like a boy to a man, like you go on this trip, right. And you get super drugged out, and then you're in the middle of the forest and you have to survive for yourself. And sometimes they come back and pick you up, sometimes you have to make your way back to the tribe. It just depends. But I think that really speaks to a lot of things, is like it's a way of giving wisdom
Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
quick way. It's a quick way to get wisdom, as you said, with like philosophy and stuff like that, Cam.
Well, yeah, it's
So-
funny that you mentioned natives. Sorry, just one sec, Ryan. It's funny you mentioned natives, because those rituals focus around, like you said, wisdom, but they're getting it from their ancestors, right? It's like a way to commune with those who have passed on, commune with the spirits of your ancestors. And I just noticed this now, but like it's a super cool parallel, because Dune, like I mentioned before, well, no, it's important. Whatever, it's cool. The
Oh, I love
spice,
Dune. I'm never gonna judge you for bringing up Dune.
yeah, but the spice, it allowed people to commune with, well, certain people to commune with their ancestral memories, their genetic memories inside themselves. And so they got the ancient wisdom from their genetic memories. So it's like Dune put a like scientific or like a science fiction spin on the native ritual of ingesting the
Mhm.
the hallucinogenic to commune with your spirit, the spirits of your ancestors. And then Dune was like, no, this drug, how it actually works is you're accessing their genetic memories in your DNA, which is so cool to me. Like that's such a cool concept.
If you
And
like
When you
that,
look at it,
Cam,
when you
if
look at it
like
in the
that,
sense, I was just
if you
gonna say,
li-
when you
if
look
you-
at it in a sense of,
go
You're-
ahead, Connor.
you
Go
keep
ahead,
going at the
Connor.
exact same time.
Go ahead, Connor. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, when you look at it like from the perspective of Sarah's question, like multi-dimensional and stuff like that, like you're all like, when you go on that trip and you access, the spirits of your ancestors or spirits of that the tribe believes in, that's almost like multi-dimensional, right? Like you're able to
Yeah.
access a realm on earth that being in a sober state you wouldn't be able to access. Now, whether
Right.
that's just your mind playing tricks on you,
Well,
or
it's like when we
is it
discuss the
reality?
afterlife, like, are we touching the afterlife? Like, we're essentially traveling through time. If you're communing with ancient wisdom, and who knows what the source of that wisdom is, right? Like, but if you are getting an understanding from having these psychedelic or hallucinogenic experiences, where is that coming from? Is it coming from our ancestors, God, or just our brains being able to focus on the bigger picture?
So
I don't know.
So two things. First thing, Cam, if you love the idea of stories about accessing the genetic memories of your ancestors through your own DNA,
Mhm.
I would encourage you to look at Assassin's Creed, because that is
Oh,
literally
yeah?
all. That is
Oh,
literally
that's what
all
it
it's.
is?
It's not about drugs. It's about how technology allows us to do that, and
Right.
then they use it to find these mythological artifacts that were once created by a precursor race of humanoids that came before us. So there's a lot of Scientology in it too, but
Right.
I think you would like that if you like the idea of accessing genetic memories.
Yeah, I've always
And-
wanted to play those games. Never got around to it though.
No, yeah, they're a great time. But what I was gonna say is, or what I was gonna ask you, and this is no insult to those of who believe in the stories of Christianity in the Bible, but do you think? I think we can all agree that Jesus walking on water is pretty like
Right.
that's pretty
right.
crazy, right? Do you think a lot of those experiences that those apostles witnessed was the result of hallucinations, whether it be by psychedelics or heat stroke or whatever?
It's funny you mentioned that, actually, because so I don't think I would say that. Like, most of the miracles in the Bible are there, I think, for the story they tell.
Yeah, the
More
lessons that they're
so.
trying. Yeah, the lessons
Yeah.
they're trying to teach. I agree.
But that being said, there could certainly be a connection between. So this is one of the theories I was talking about that's gained ground a little bit again recently, is that Christianity might even be, to some degree, originated and influenced by hallucinogenic experiences. For example, the Eucharist, which is a fundamental part of at least Roman Catholicism, and I don't know about any the other denominations, but receiving the body and blood of Christ, right?
Mhm.
I mean, if you break that down, what is that really? Why you're ingesting a liquid and a substance? Now we take it to be wine and bread, but who knows what the original idea of the Eucharist was, right? in order to receive the Holy Spirit unto yourself. I mean, if you just take that as a metaphor for taking a psychoactive drug to receive God in the sense of that understanding, that purpose, that meaning, it's essentially equivalent, right? So the sacrament of the Eucharist, ingesting a substance that allows the Holy Spirit to commune with you. I mean, that sounds to me an awful lot like a drug trip. I mean, the resemblance is stunning. Like, don't you think?
You know,
When you look-
so slightly off topic, I would be way more open to going to church if they changed the body of Christ from that stale ass chip to like a Pringle or something.
Oh my
know,
god!
I mean,
I actually love those. They taste
I was
great,
just-
man.
No, they already changed wine to grape juice. Why can't they change this fucking stale ass chip to a Pringle? Like,
Yeah,
hook a brother up.
But isn't that kind of crazy though? Like,
I was just gonna say, like, if you look at these ancient religions that were known to like use psychedelics and stuff, it's pretty similar to the culture around like these modern religions. Like, so it would be the shaman, right? And the shaman would
right? Yeah,
partake in like heavy amounts of these drugs so that the rest of the tribe or the rest of the people that shaman supported, he would be able to help them trip safely.
yeah,
And if that's how you're looking at it, and the priest was giving the body and blood of Christ or whatever it was, as you said, like it could be whatever substance,
mhm,
it would be the same thing, because a priest lives, at least in the Roman Catholic Church, lives by themselves
Mhm.
and kind of a little bit segregated from everybody else. And that was the same thing with shaman. The shaman usually lived on the outskirts of the tribal area of the community, and came to the main area when there was a big celebration or whatever the event would be, made sure everyone was safe in whatever endeavor they were doing, and then they'd go back to their dwelling.
yeah. Well, that's what I was trying to. Yeah, you're right. Like, shaman. It's funny you mentioned shamans because, yeah, that's like the well, that's the right word. Those were the people that were very likely using these kinds of substances. But yeah, it's like I'm just so fascinated by the idea of the Eucharist as, who knows what it was 2000 years ago. Was the original idea the priest or whoever saying to the followers of Christ, like, here, take this. This is the body and blood of Christ. And then they just went on a wild trip and were like, oh my God, yeah, like the Holy Spirit entered me. I saw Jesus, but maybe they're right? Like maybe that experience is God and the closest we'll get to touching him, at least,
Well, so
I say that as just the idea of God, right? Not necessarily the Christian God.
So I think at the end of the day here, we can all agree that psychedelics can certainly put you in a mindset that brings about productivity and a certain level of enlightenment.
Yeah,
think
well,
is
the
what we
other
can
thing
take away
is
from
like
here.
we see the world like in a very particular way, right? And like there was this funny video once, not funny, like cool, that showed like a picture of the Earth, like the famous blue marble of the Earth from the moon, and then it was like a picture of the Earth with like ultraviolet light or like gamma ray light, like stuff that the human eye can't perceive, and like it looks different, obviously. And so it really just gets you thinking, like, well, it gets you thinking about what reality is really, because it's like we only know what we perceive, right? And who knows if that is reality at all? Like, are we witnessing the objective reality of the universe, or is it just filtered through our eyes and our brain and our experiences as what our brains naturally are? Who knows?
This
Maybe
might be
we
the stupidest thing
peel
ever.
back the veil, like, right? Maybe psychedelics is peeling back the veil of our subjective reality, and like who knows what we could see, the fourth dimension, like I don't know.
Maybe this is the silliest thing ever, but what happens if oxygen is like like a poison, or not a poison, but it's keeping our eyes closed to what reality is, and then you take these drugs and it like stops the symptoms of oxygen and like what we consider to be sober, and it like opens it up to what the real world actually is.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's basically what I'm saying, but I don't know about
Yeah.
oxygen being. But
Well,
Phil,
yeah, like,
I want to
like
hear
something
Phil's
that's
thoughts. Phil's been
there and
silent as a
here.
freaking mouse over here.
Well,
Phil's
not
tripping. Phil's tripping right now. I
I'm
think.
tripping.
He's
I'm
like,
actually not even on this earth right now.
Yeah.
Actually, I was just taken aback by the brilliance that I just witnessed. But basically,
Phil just
I just
saw
wanted to
God.
talk a bit about yeah, I want to talk a bit about specifically the trips on DMT.
Right.
As you all know, it's very psychoactive and it has a certain effect on the brain. I think it's very interesting that the people that do DMT have very similar experiences. And what I mean by this is that there's at the end of their trip, there is this overwhelming sense of calm and understanding, and that the burden has been lifted on their life. And I think,
Mhm.
and for the most part, these psychedelics, and I find it's actually cool, is that these experiences end up being overwhelmingly positive. And I
Yeah.
think that's just such a powerful testament to how nuts these things could actually be for us, in like, if we want to think of ourselves as like religious beings and like just wanting to converse with the world in a positive way. I think that's
Yeah.
really cool.
Or
And I find
even
it,
not.
yeah.
Sorry. Go
Correct me if I'm
finish.
wrong, Phil, on two things here. Like number one, it's like almost everyone that has done DMT has like similar experiences in the end, right?
Yeah. There's a similar
That's what I
kind
mean.
of story. Like,
Yeah. But
And
doesn't DMT, like I guess the second question is, doesn't DMT like release some sort of chemical reaction in your brain that's like the same thing as dying?
well, I think there's some scientific backing that when you die, your body produces DMT. So that's why you can somehow like see light or see whatever God when you like
Oh God,
come
that
back
would
from
scare the
life.
shit out of me.
But basically, where I was going with this is that I want to specifically go to Joe
confront
Rogan's
death.
experience on DMT, where he sees this jester that is kind of not taking his bullshit, like knowingly pointing at him, like, you're full of shit, you're full of shit. And there's something so vital about humility
Yeah.
that is, it's profound. And I just find it so interesting how everyone on this drug seems to have such a uniform experience. And it's just really interesting.
Yeah. Because it's like, what is that force? What, like, and also, why do these drugs exist? Like, especially like psilocybin and mushrooms and stuff. Like, in some sense, like, if we're not meant to experiment with that, why do they exist in the world? It's like,
Bring it back to the story of Adam and Eve, bro. It's like the fruit. It's like the forbidden fruit.
well, that's it, right? The fruit was from the tree of knowledge, the knowledge of good and evil. And in a metaphorical sense, when Adam ate the fruit, that was humans coming into being, gaining knowledge, gaining the capacity to sin, gaining agency, and separating ourselves from God. But you're right, like, that's kind of, I didn't think about that, but even in that story, it's the idea of eating something natural and gaining something metaphysical. Oh, it's so cool, man. It's so cool.
I've heard a theory like about how we got our consciousness was because when we like if they believe that we evolved from apes, we started going from the trees to the ground and then started messing around with like the mushrooms on the ground and stuff like that, which were
Oh, which produced consciousness.
psychedelics, and then that kind of helped. Yeah, and then over time that's how we got our consciousness, was from tripping on mushrooms.
Oh, dude, I
That's
never
an
Whether
even
interesting
thought about
theory.
that. That's crazy.
whether it's true or not, like
Mhm.
that's just a theory that I read. But
That's a really interesting one. Okay, we got about a minute left, so we may as well wrap it up. I think we should
yeah.
come back to this at a later date, because this is a wellspring of ideas, man. So shout out Sarah again for
Yeah.
Yeah,
suggesting
great
that.
topic. Great topic.
Freaking awesome.
Brilliant.
Bring
yeah,
us another topic if you want, Sarah. This was a great one.
yeah, hit us up. But yeah,
Anybody else as
anyone,
well?
anybody, like, if you want to send us topics to discuss, if you're curious about stuff, like, we'll talk about anything. We're just trying to think and learn and grow and
Broaden your
yeah,
minds.
exactly. But yeah, let's wrap it up here, boys.
Yeah. All right, everybody, take care. Brush your hair. Make sure to follow us on all our socials. Drop a comment, drop a like, drop a follow, and we'll be back on Friday. So have a great rest of your week, everyone.